Hello guys, before I start this video, this is a disclaimer that needs to be put up. I usually don't put these types of disclaimers at the beginning of my videos because I'm usually very calm and collective, but there are going to be moments in this video where either me or someone I'm going to be doing a co-op with are going to be yelling throughout this video. If you are in any way sensitive to loud noises or yelling, be sure to either go or put your volume on a place where it's as low as possible. And if you're watching this video at night and you live with other people, be sure to wear some headphones so that way the screaming in the video won't wake anybody in your house. I don't usually yell in my videos because I'm generally very calm when it comes to talking about things, but in this video, who or what I'm talking about rubs me the wrong way to the point where I can't talk about these things calmly, but if you don't mind any of that, continue on. With all that said, enjoy the video. Raya and the Last Dragon is a 2021 Disney animated movie that was the first animated movie from the company to be released in theaters after the pandemic that happened the year before. That getting started is not good at all. Yeah, I'm not holding anything back. Raya and the Last Dragon is bad. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say that it's the worst Disney movie. I mean, Chicken Little exists, and you guys already know what I think about The Wild. And on the Pixar side of things, Brave is worse than this movie, but let me put it like this. The very first time that I watched this movie, I knew that something was extremely off about it, but I didn't know what it was at first. But then it clicked to me, and I really thought about what this movie was trying to push, and because of this aspect of the film alone, it is easily one of Disney's worst movies, by far, and that is not an exaggeration. But before we get to that aspect of the film, what is this movie about? The film revolves around a girl named Raya. After a little incident where her father trusts the other tribes of the world that they live in, after dragons have gone nearly extinct, it's up to Raya to find a way to get the world back to normal, all while trying to avoid someone who backstabbed her, named Namari. And with the aid of the aforementioned last dragon named Sisu, they need to get all the pieces of this crystal gem ball back together in order to save their world. To start off this review, one of the first major issues with this movie is this movie's god-awful pacing. Not counting the end credits, which is 20 minutes, the movie in total is only an hour and 36 minutes. But the movie has as much patience as Sonic the Hedgehog, in that the movie generally feels like it's struggling to justify its runtime, so the movie is constantly jumping at every possibility to get to the next scene, which also as a result makes the writing suffer as well. In general, throughout the entire runtime of the film, the characters travel across 4 locations to get each piece of this crystal gem, and the film also has to do this while also taking into account the narrative, the characters, the writing, etc. And yet, this movie feels like it's missing a ton of scenes, and I think I know the reason why. This movie does not feel like it should have been a movie in the slightest. This feels like several episodes of a miniseries sloppily crammed into one movie, and it obviously shows. From beginning to end, it's at breakneck speed to get itself over with, which is why when we get done with the flashback in the movie, Raya is looking for Sisu. But at the exact same time, the movie still feels incomplete because the characters are not focused on properly. So it ends up leaving all of them either one-dimensional or downright pointless. Needless to say, you're not gonna be seeing anyone talk about these characters in the same vein as the genie from Aladdin or Simba from The Lion King anytime soon, which makes me wonder why this wasn't an animated series instead of a movie. But then when really thinking about it, I realized the reason why. This movie shares a lot of similarities to something like Avatar: The Last Airbender, right down to the title. Think about it. Characters traveling across the land with someone they think can save their world, who ends up being more of a handful than anything. Sound familiar to you guys? But at the exact same time, the film generally feels like Disney was too afraid that they'd step on Paramount's toes if they decided decided to make this into a series. Yet another case of Disney trying way too hard to be like someone they're not making this movie's case any better. From the very first trailer when we see Raya's child design, she looks a bit like Katara. I'd even say too much like Katara. To the point where I even said this to someone, and even they agreed with me. And accompanying Raya is a large creature that acts like a mobile ride for Raya, and said characters basically team up to take those that ruin their world down. But you see, it's different here because this movie basically shoves a message of trusting everyone down your throats. So it's like the equivalent of characters in Avatar trying to convince the Fire Nation to turn over a new leaf or join their side. In all seriousness though, if this movie had such an issue regarding in the originality and its pacing, why didn't they just go back and make a new draft of the film? Oh yeah, this movie was released at a time when the pandemic was still a thing, so never mind that then. And even disregarding this movie's massive pacing issues, the writing in general is absolutely terrible. A lot of the time, the movie switches from, "Oh my goodness, we shouldn't trust these people, they'd backstab you at any moment," to a freaking episode of Season 5 of Steven Universe. I'm not even joking. The movie shows one of its characters, Namari,
"Don't worry, I'll get to the many problematic things about her in just a bit,"
as being extremely hostile and unhinged, specifically around Raya, and then after the most infuriating sequence where she kills Sisu for the most contrived and baffling thing that I've ever seen on screen, and then guilt trips Raya for her trust issues, the film all of a sudden wants us to see her as good now, after she tried to kill Raya on multiple occasions? Are you serious, movie? And there's absolutely no transition between all the tribes hating each other to them getting along now. This didn't happen because Raya and those she befriended trust each other now. They like each other now because the plot demands it. And the film is absolutely obsessed with this message of trust. But the movie on several different occasions shoots itself in the foot regarding its message to the point of being a generally harmful thing to teach for reasons I'll get to later. And the message generally falls flat because of what is shown on screen in these sequences. And they don't really think about the general implications behind what they're teaching. They teach the message of making the first move of trusting someone, but the movie doesn't question is if there are people out there that could use you, if the trust that the movie is trying to push is one-sided and the other is trying to backstab you. That definitely does not look good on this movie's part. Yes, I understand that this is an animated movie. The people in this movie are not gonna be like how people are like in the real world. But this movie is being 100% serious when it comes to this message, all while trying to sugarcoat it. That is what I feel is the worst aspect of the film, which I'll be getting to later. Weird how people only really seem to hyper-focus on Sisu, when the actual message does a lot more harm to the film than her. Speaking of which, if there is a specific criticism about this movie that I do believe is blown way out of proportion, it's definitely Sisu. I still don't like her for reasons that I'll be getting to in a little bit, but I wouldn't really say that she downright ruins the movie or anything like that, because Sisu is not really that obnoxious. It's kind of like how a lot of people hate Olaf from Frozen, despite the fact that he doesn't really do all that much in the movies that warrant the hate that he gets. I don't know, but it's probably just me. It can take a lot out of me to get me annoyed with something or someone. The issue that I have with Sisu instead is that she kind of feels like the people behind the movie were trying to make their own version of the genie from Aladdin, from the fact that Sisu is a powerful creature that aids the main character on their journey, and that she makes a bunch of wisecracks throughout the movie, and tries to give the main character advice that they don't really take into mind. However, here's the problem. What made the genie from Aladdin a beloved character was that not only was he useful to the plot, but also the genie was, and here's the big twist, funny? Sisu in this movie is just there, and she really doesn't say or do anything thought-provoking at all, other than hammering home this movie's horrible message,
which I'll get to.
But in a weird way, she serves the most and the least purpose out of all the characters in this movie. She's not a character, she's a plot device. Essentially, she's just a scrappy do. A character that throws herself into situations and brings others into said situations with her. A primary example of this in the movie is when she directly gets off the boat that Raya and the others were on, and runs off to give a gift to the Spine Tribe, getting herself and Raya captured in the process. And that's another thing that I don't like about her as well. She treats the situation like this is just an easy conflict clearing solution, when no, this is a serious matter. The way that she treats this situation is just ridiculous. She believes that in order for peace and harmony to be restored among all of these tribes, is to just give them a gift and then, oh my goodness, this is so cool, I want to be friends with you forever. I get that she was asleep for a million years, and so she doesn't know how these tribes have acted since all of them have drifted apart, but what does Sisu think that this is? Just an episode of Dora the Explorer or the Care Bears? This is just embarrassing. And as for the other characters, not a single one of them even stood out to me at all, except for the main characters and Namari, obviously. The only one in which I do sympathize with is Raya, because she got all of this piled onto her for no reason, even as early as the beginning of the film. Yes, she trusted Namari, but the film shows that she was a child, and Raya's father,
In a very stupid and irresponsible way, might I add,
decided to blindly trust the other tribes to begin with, thus encouraging Raya to trust Namari. So I don't see how in any way this is Raya's fault. Children don't know any better. They don't have that much of a full grasp on the world around them yet, nor do they know about the concept of manipulation. It's Raya's father that is more to blame than Raya, because he stupidly decided to trust the other tribes despite knowing that they try to get their hands on the crystal. Speaking of the other characters, I find them either very pointless or downright repulsive. Thinking back to previous Disney movies real quick, it honestly amazes me how a movie like The Lion King, which had a ton of important characters, surpassing this movie in quantity, are more memorable in their personality than this movie is. I can't think of any other character traits for these three other than kid that tries to be charming but is just embarrassing himself, a baby that is a thief, and the strong muscular guy. These three have next to no use in the plot. The baby is stealthy, which leads to sequences where she's sneaking around and is a good distractor while her monkey friends steal things for her, but the other two are just there because the movie needs the kid as he could control the boat, while the muscular guy is strong and that's all you get. But all of what I said about this movie pales in comparison to the worst aspect of it, and that is the fact that this movie's view on morality, as well as the message of the film, disgust me on every single fundamental level imaginable. I could look past the fact that the writing is very bad, and I could also ignore how this movie desperately wants to be the next Avatar: The Last Airbender,
because a lot of animated films I reviewed so far had these issues.
but the movie blatantly telling its audience, as well as Raya, to trust others no matter what they did, personally rubs me in such a wrong way that it immediately takes away any sort of redemption that this movie could have had. Usually, I don't like to get onto any sort of TV show or movie for having a bad message, especially after the age where critics would often attack those who made the products, especially if the show or movie is not supposed to be taken that seriously. SpongeBob and Teen Titans Go are examples of this, where you could debate about it having lessons that aren't supposed to be taken seriously, despite the fact that the latter show is aimed at an impressionable audience, but for things that are straightforward with what it's teaching, like shows that are serious with their morals, TV shows, or something that is clearly supposed to be taken seriously, that's when it becomes a problem. We have another Ivan the Incredible situation on our hands is what I'm saying. For one thing, this movie has the exact same level of morality and redeeming behavior as Steven Universe. But give Steven Universe some credit. That show, you could argue, was not intentionally trying to redeem those that did something bad. The show was probably intending to say that the Diamonds were naive or clueless to what happened to Pink Diamond, which was why all of the events of that show happened in the first place. This movie, on the other hand, is saying out loud that you should trust those that did something bad because they want to make things up to you. Remember how back during my review on Middle School Moggles, when I said that the final episode's message of stealing was okay because you were doing it for a good cause was atrocious? Well, that's the problem with this movie. This is not only a horrible thing to say to children, because children are impressionable, but this is also a horrible horrible message for adults as well. Because not only does it give off the impression that the movie is telling abuse victims to trust their abusers because they want to make up for what they did, but what this movie is implying as well is that the person who did all of these things that caused the world to get destroyed is not the one who should learn a lesson. The film is implying that the victim is the one who should learn a lesson. As the movie constantly gets onto Raya for having trust issues, despite the fact that she is in her right to have trust issues after what happened to her as a freaking child, but also, the movie shows the many reasons as to why Raya is not wrong for having trust issues, especially given the one sequence where the Chief of Talon was about to let Sisu get turned into a statue if she didn't hand over the pieces of the gem. And there are several sequences that contradicts what this movie is trying to go for. And the movie already shot itself in the foot because the movie implies and shows that Namari is not trustworthy. And what the movie is basically doing could be considered victim blaming. Because Raya is the one who was affected the most, as the other tribes were the ones who got Raya's father turned into a statue. And because she was so psychologically damaged at a young age, she should not be the one who has to learn this lesson. And if the movie really wanted us to believe that Raya is being unreasonable with Namari and everyone else, maybe you shouldn't show sequences where characters are stabbing each other in the back, because it makes it seem like the movie is saying that Raya shouldn't have trust issues despite what she went through. And you should also not have a sequence where Namari is about to shoot Sisu, especially given that she was going to shoot Sisu anyway, because that's what that shot implies. Don't put focus on a shot where Namari is putting her finger on the trigger, because it implies that she was going to kill Sisu even if Raya didn't try to stop her. And then later on, when Raya directly confronts Namari, she deflects the blame onto Raya, saying, "It's your fault just as much as it is my fault," and then guilt-tripping Raya into believing that she didn't trust Sisu. Excuse me? You literally had your finger on the trigger. Of course Raya was not going to freaking trust you. And she trusted Sisu because she knew that Sisu was not going to stab her in the back! And by the way, no, Namari does not get any sort of consequences in the slightest for anything she did throughout the movie, nor does she even apologize for any of this, even though everyone in Fang's starting to get turned into statues was her fault in the first place. And the only reason why she and by extension the rest of the tribes come together at the end of the film is because the plot demands it. And the only reason why she decided to come together with Raya and the other characters is because the plot also demands it. It's a jarring tonal shift to have her getting all fierce and fighting with Raya, only to go all like, "Oh, I trust you now, to the point where I'm going to stay and put the gem back together." For the love of God, Angus Scattergood from Rock Dog at least learned his lesson at the end of his movie. Same thing for Buck Cluck from Chicken Little. Here, we get nothing. And by the way, I know what people are going to say. "Oh, this one problem should not get in the way of the entire movie. Maybe you should look at the other parts and not say it's bad because of this." I got this exact same defense whenever I said that I didn't like Robot Boy. People defended that show because of Tommy, Lola, and Robot Boy, despite the fact that there are other problems with that show, even putting aside the other characters I dislike. With Raya and the Last Dragon, it's extremely hard to do this because this movie shoves this one message down the audience's throats to the point where the movie feels like it was written for preschoolers. That's how forced that this movie's message is hammered into the audience, to the point where this honestly feels like a long episode of Captain Planet because of how unsubtle this movie is.
Protect the environment, or I'll kill you, Captain Planet!
At least that show was doing what it was doing for a good cause, that being to keep the environment safe. This movie, again, is hammering in a message that is genuinely harmful to teach anybody of any age, especially if you're someone who dealt with a manipulator or an abuser. To give this movie every benefit of the doubt that I possibly can, maybe it's not intentionally trying to tell its viewers to trust everyone, because, you know, trusting someone is a good thing to encourage if someone is trying to help you. As someone who used to reject any and all criticisms flung my way, it's a good thing to trust those that try to help you. But when it comes to situations like what Raya goes through in this movie, where someone stabs you in the back and continues to show this exact same behavior for many months or years on end, that's the problem with this movie. The implications speak louder than what it's intending. And so to have this movie imply that you should just blindly trust other people, especially if they did something abhorrent to you that took a massive effect on your mental health, that personally strikes a nerve within me, and desecrates every single positive that I could have with it. Which, getting onto that aspect real quick, there are two positives that I will give this movie that keep it away from being completely awful, in the same vein as either Brave or The Wild. As standard for any Disney movie, I will say that the animation in this movie is very beautiful, as well as atmospheric, and I like how the other tribes look. And the movie put a lot of effort into the world building, where the entire map's ocean is shaped exactly like a dragon, and how all the other tribes don't look exactly the same. And the movie itself does try to go into a different kind of style than what we're used to Disney using, and admittedly, what got me looking forward to this movie is the martial arts angle that we've seen in the trailers, because Disney didn't really do this beforehand. The closest that we've ever gone with this is Mulan, but that film is more focused on war than it is on martial arts. But that is a movie that I'd rather be watching than this. And besides, all of the positives that this movie could have gotten to salvage it is moot at this point. Some of Disney's most infamous movies, like The Black Cauldron and Home on the Range, have good animation, but are movies that the company wants to forget about. And the world building aspect does not save this movie. Good ideas cannot save a bad product, as I've learned from Ollie's Pack. So overall, as I stated just a little bit ago, while I don't believe that Raya and the Last Dragon is the worst of the Disney or Pixar movies, because I could have seen this movie working, as opposed to Brave or The Wild, which are clones of past Disney and Pixar movies, I humbly believe that it's one of their worst. Yes, I'd even take Home on the Range over this movie. Home on the Range is obnoxious and has dislikable characters, and it's a movie that is only aimed at children, not everyone of all ages, but that movie is harmless, and I doubt that children will take notes that would potentially harm them from that movie. Raya and the Last Dragon genuinely does this in every single way, and it's not a movie that I would recommend to children or even adults. Heck, I'd even take the 2021 Tom and Jerry movie over this, because outside of Kayla, that movie is also harmless. Raya and the Last Dragon is an appropriate title, admittedly, because not only is Sisu the Last Dragon in this movie, but this is the last animated movie from 2021 that I'll be watching ever again.
Everything I